I never thought I'd be the guy writing one of these posts. But here I am because I have no idea what else to do. My name's Ben, 35, and I've been married to Kathy, 33, for 8 years. Until 6 months ago, I would have told you we had a great marriage. Nothing perfect, but happy. We had inside jokes, took spontaneous road trips, had deep conversations at night. I always felt lucky to have her. But now I don't even know who I'm married to anymore. It started small. At first, Kathy seemed tired all the time. She'd brush off my hugs, give me quick pecks instead of real kisses, and barely laugh at my jokes. I figured work stress, maybe some personal stuff she wasn't ready to talk about. But then she started canceling date nights last minute, staying late at work more often, and guarding her phone like it held nuclear codes. I tried to be understanding. I asked if something was wrong, if she was feeling okay. She'd just sigh and say I was overthinking. "I'm just tired, Ben," she'd say, looking at me like I was an inconvenience. I bought flowers one night, thinking maybe she needed a little romance. She barely glanced at them. I suggested we go on a weekend getaway. She said she was too busy. I even brought up marriage counseling, but she laughed. Actually laughed. "Ben, seriously? Counseling? You're making a big deal out of nothing." Nothing. That's what she called the growing void between us. One night, I finally pushed for an answer. I told her I missed how we used to be. That I missed her. She just looked at me cold as ice. "My body is my choice," she said flatly, crossing her arms. I just stared at her. What? Since when did I have to ask permission to hold my own wife's hand? Since when did my touch become something she needed to control? That was the moment something inside me shifted. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was suspicious. And I was right to be. After that night, things got worse. Kathy stopped pretending altogether. She barely acknowledged me in the house, like I was some roommate she regretted living with. No more goodnight kisses, no more casual touches, no more "I love you"s. I started watching her more closely. Not in a creepy way, just noticing things. She always had her phone screen tilted away from me. She started going to bed later than usual, claiming she wasn't tired, but I could hear her typing away. One night, I walked into the bedroom earlier than she expected. She was in bed on her phone, and when she saw me, she practically jumped and turned the screen off so fast you'd think I walked in on a crime scene. "What's that?" I asked. "Nothing," she said, slipping the phone under the pillow like a teenager hiding something from their parents. "Nothing." Again. I didn't push it right away, but that moment stayed with me. The next day I checked our phone bill. I never cared about this kind of thing before, but something was telling me to look. And sure enough, there was a number I didn't recognize popping up again and again. Late at night, during lunch breaks, even during the weekends when she was supposedly out with the girls. So I did what any husband with a gut feeling would do. I called it. And that's when everything really started to fall apart. When I called the number, my heart was pounding. I didn't even know what I was expecting. Maybe some random coworker, maybe one of her friends. But the second a man's voice answered with a casual, "Hello?" I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. I didn't say anything. Just stood there, gripping my phone, feeling my stomach twist into knots. I hung up without a word. I needed proof. Real proof. So I started watching even closer. Kathy's girls' nights suddenly became more frequent, but she never came back with any gossip like she used to. She started dressing up more. Nothing crazy, just small things I noticed. New perfume. More effort with her makeup. A different kind of energy when she left the house. I wasn't stupid. I knew what this looked like. So one night, when she told me she was going out again, I waited a few minutes, then followed her. I wasn't proud of it, but I had to know. She didn't go to a bar. She didn't go to a restaurant. She went straight to a hotel. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. 15 minutes later, he showed up. Some guy I had never seen before, looking way too comfortable walking inside. I felt sick. My own wife, the woman I built a life with, was in there with him. And in that moment, something inside me broke. I sat in my car for what felt like hours, but in reality, it was maybe 20 minutes. My hands were shaking. My jaw was clenched so hard it hurt. Every rational thought was at war with the emotional tidal wave crashing through me. This can't be real. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe this was a business meeting, some kind of surprise, something, anything, other than what it looked like. But deep down, I knew. I gripped my phone, staring at her contact. I wanted to call her. Wanted to demand she step outside and face me. Wanted to scream, to break something, to make her feel even a fraction of what I was feeling in that moment. But I didn't. Instead, I just sat there watching the hotel entrance like an idiot. I couldn't bring myself to go inside. Not because I didn't want to catch her. Oh, I did. but I wasn't sure what I'd do when I did. Would I yell? Would I cry? Would I get violent? I didn't like those possibilities. So I waited. And after about an hour and a half, she walked out. Kathy looked different, relaxed, satisfied. She smoothed out her hair, checked her phone, and then smiled, one of those soft, secret smiles like she just had the best time of her life. That was it. The moment I knew there was no going back. I followed her home, staying a few cars behind. By the time she walked into our house, I was already parked outside, gripping the steering wheel so hard my fingers hurt. I forced myself to breathe before stepping inside. She was in the kitchen, casually making herself tea, like she hadn't just come back from betraying me in the worst way possible. I closed the door behind me, my voice dangerously calm. Where were you? She flinched just a little. That tiny hesitation before she turned around, forcing a smile. Oh, just out with the girls. Why? She was lying. Boldly. Casually. To my face. I walked closer. Which girls? She blinked. Another pause. You don't know them. I scoffed. I didn't even have to try anymore. She was digging her own grave. That's funny, Kathy. Because I was just at the hotel you were at. The color drained from her face so fast I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. She opened her mouth, then closed it. The mental gymnastics were obvious. She was scrambling for a story, for any excuse that might save her. Ben, I cut her off. Who is he? Silence. She swallowed hard, setting her mug down with a quiet clink. It's not what you think. I laughed. Actually laughed. A bitter, humorless sound. Oh, so you weren't at a hotel with another man? She hesitated. Ben, can we just talk about this? I stepped back, shaking my head. That's all I've been trying to do for 6 months. And every time you lied. You gaslit me. You made me feel crazy. And all this time, you were screwing some guy in a hotel? She looked at me, then really looked at me, and for the first time in months I saw fear. Not fear of me hurting her, I'd never lay a hand on her. But fear of losing control. Because she knew. She knew this was the moment she lost me for good. Kathy stood there, gripping the counter like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her eyes darted around the room, avoiding mine, like she was searching for an escape route. Ben, please, let's sit down and talk. I shook my head. No. No more talking in circles. No more lies. I want the truth. She let out a shaky breath, rubbing her arms like she was suddenly cold. I didn't mean for this to happen. I let out a bitter laugh. That's the best you've got? That's what you're going with? She looked desperate now. I swear, Ben, I never planned this. It just happened. I ran a hand through my hair, pacing the kitchen. Oh, so you just tripped and fell into his bed? That's how it works now. It wasn't like that, she snapped, her voice rising. But then she quickly softened, probably realizing anger wouldn't help her case. Ben, I felt lost. You weren't paying attention to me anymore. That stopped me in my tracks. I wasn't paying attention to you? Yes, she rushed to say, like she'd finally found an angle she could spin. For months I felt like I was invisible to you. You were so busy with work, with your own life. I needed to feel wanted. I stared at her, absolutely stunned. Are you serious right now? I was the one planning date nights. I was the one asking what was wrong. I was the one trying to fix this marriage while you shut me out. And now you're blaming me? Her lips trembled. I didn't mean. No, you did, I cut in, my voice eerily calm. You meant every single choice you made. Every text. Every sneaky little excuse. Every lie. And now, when you're caught, suddenly it's my fault? She didn't answer. She just stood there, blinking rapidly like she was about to cry. And you know what? I felt nothing. Not pity, not guilt, not even anger anymore. Just emptiness. I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. How long? She swallowed hard. 6 months? I let out a slow breath, nodding. Wow. So the entire time I was trying to figure out what was wrong, you were with him? She sniffled. It wasn't always physical. At first, we were just talking, and I didn't think it would go anywhere. I scoffed. So you emotionally cheated first, then decided to make it physical. That's supposed to make me feel better? She wiped at her eyes, her hands shaking. I was confused, Ben. I still love you. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. You love me? I gestured toward the front door. You were just at a hotel with another man. How exactly does that translate to love? Her voice broke. I don't want to lose you. You lost me the moment you decided to lie, I said, my voice firm. You lost me when you gaslit me into thinking I was crazy for suspecting something was wrong. You lost me when you looked me in the eye night after night, and pretended to still be my wife. Tears streamed down her face now, but I didn't care. I pushed off the counter, heading for the bedroom. She followed me. Ben, wait, what are you doing? Packing, I said simply. Her face paled. Packing? Where are you going? I turned to face her, holding her gaze. I'm not going anywhere. You are. Her breath caught. No, Ben, please. I grabbed my phone and started typing. You have 5 minutes to tell me the truth about everything, or I'm calling a lawyer right now. Her whole body started shaking. And that's when the real confessions came out. Kathy's entire body went stiff. She knew this was it, no more dodging, no more excuses. Either she told the truth, or I'd make sure she had no control over what happened next. She took a deep breath, her hands gripping the edge of the bed. Okay, she whispered. I'll tell you everything. I sat on the dresser, arms crossed. Go on. She hesitated. I could see the gears in her head turning, still trying to figure out how to soften the blow. But I wasn't in the mood for sugarcoating. Who is he? I demanded. She flinched but finally answered. His name is Mark. He's someone from work. Of course. Classic. I exhaled through my nose. Married? Pause. Yes. My jaw tightened. So you've been sneaking around with another woman's husband. Does his wife know? Kathy shook her head quickly. No. I don't think so. He told me he's unhappy, that she doesn't love him anymore. I rolled my eyes. All right. Then unhappy marriage excuse. That's straight out of the cheater's handbook. She winced but kept going. We didn't mean to hurt anyone, Ben. It started as just venting. We both felt stuck, like no one understood us. And one night after work we kissed, and then I held up a hand. Spare me the details. She swallowed hard, rubbing her arms like she was cold. I swear it wasn't all about sex. I let out a bitter laugh. Oh, so I'm supposed to feel better because you were emotionally invested too? Wow, Kathy, that really takes the sting out of it. She shook her head frantically. I know I messed up. But I was confused, Ben. I still love you. I scoffed. You don't love me. You love the comfort I provide. You love knowing I'd always be here, while you ran around behind my back. Her breathing became shaky. I didn't want to lose you. I stood up, looking her dead in the eye. You lost me the second you lied. And you lost my respect the second you tried to blame me for it. She let out a small sob, gripping my arm. Please, Ben, don't do this. We can fix this. I yanked my arm away. Fix what? You made this choice for both of us the moment you walked into that hotel. Her face twisted in desperation. It was just a mistake. I shook my head. A mistake is spilling coffee on your shirt. A 6-month affair is a series of decisions. And you made every single one of them. Silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. Then I grabbed my phone. I'm calling a lawyer. Kathy panicked. She lunged forward, trying to grab my phone, her voice frantic. No, wait. Please. Let's talk about this. We can work through it. I held the phone out of reach. Why? So you can manipulate me into staying? So you can cry and beg and hope I just forget the last 6 months? She was shaking now, really shaking. Ben, I swear I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy, I'll quit my job, I'll cut him off completely. Just don't leave me. I stared at her. The woman I once loved. The woman I had built a life with. And all I felt was nothing. You already left me, Kathy. The only difference is I'm making it official. Then, right in front of her, I dialed the number for a divorce lawyer. She collapsed onto the bed, sobbing. But I didn't care anymore. I was done. Kathy sat on the bed, sobbing into her hands, but I wasn't moved. Not anymore. I had spent months trying to reach her, trying to fix things while she was off having her secret romance. Now she was crying because she got caught, not because she actually cared about what she did to me. I turned my back on her and walked toward the bedroom door. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. Tomorrow we'll figure out the next steps. Ben, please, she cried, scrambling off the bed. Don't just walk away from me. We can work this out. I spun around, my voice sharp. There is no we anymore, Kathy. You made sure of that. She flinched. I could see the gears turning in her head. She wasn't used to me standing my ground like this. I had always been the one to smooth things over, to compromise, to find a way to fix problems. But this wasn't fixable. She wiped at her face, her voice turning softer, almost pleading. Ben, I'll do anything. Just don't throw away 8 years of marriage over one mistake. I laughed, actually laughed at that. One mistake. You mean 6 months of sneaking around, lying to my face and making me feel like I was crazy every time I suspected something was wrong? Her lips trembled. I wasn't thinking. No, you were thinking plenty. You were just thinking about yourself? Silence. She looked down at the floor, her shoulders slumping like a child caught stealing from the cookie jar. But I wasn't interested in watching her pity party. I turned to leave. That's when her voice changed. If you leave me, you'll regret it. I froze. Slowly I turned back around. Excuse me? She straightened up, her face still wet with tears, but her eyes had something else in them now. Something colder. You don't want to do this, she said, her voice eerily calm now. Divorce will ruin everything. I narrowed my eyes. Are you threatening me? She shook her head quickly. No. I just mean, think about what happens next. The house. The money. Our families. Do you really want to deal with all that? So this was her new angle. Fear tactics. I crossed my arms. Let me be very clear, Kathy. You don't get to cheat on me for 6 months and then act like you're the victim. If you think I'm going to let you guilt trip me into staying, you're more delusional than I thought. Her face twisted in frustration. I said I was sorry, Ben. I'll do anything to fix this. The only thing you can do is leave. Her nostrils flared. I'm not leaving. I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. Fine. Then I'll start the process. I turned to walk out the door again. And that's when she really lost it. You think you'll just move on? She shrieked. You think women will line up for you after this? You're not some prize, Ben. No one wants a divorced man in his mid-30s. I stopped. There it was. The real Kathy. I turned back to face her, calm and steady. And yet, somehow, I still deserve better than you. Her mouth fell open. No comeback. No excuses. Just shock. I walked out of the room without another word, shutting the door behind me. She could scream. She could cry. She could break things for all I cared. I was done. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, listening to Kathy move around the house. I could hear her crying, slamming drawers, pacing, probably hoping I'd come back, give in, talk things through. I didn't. The next morning I got up early, took a long shower, and walked into the kitchen like nothing had changed. Because for me, everything had. Kathy was already there, sitting at the table, clutching a mug of coffee like it was the only thing keeping her together. Her eyes were puffy, her hair messy, and she looked exhausted. Good. She looked up when I entered, hopeful for a second. Ben? I grabbed a mug from the cabinet. I'm filing for divorce. Her face crumbled. Please just think about this. Let's talk. I sighed, turning to face her. What is there to talk about? You had 6 months to talk. You chose lies instead. She set her coffee down with a loud clank, gripping the table. You don't understand, Ben. I was lonely. I needed something and you weren't giving it to me. I stared at her, completely done with the victim act. Oh, I understand perfectly. I was here every night while you were sneaking around. I was planning date nights while you were texting another man. I was asking what was wrong while you were meeting him in hotel rooms. And now, suddenly it's my fault? Get real. Her eyes darkened. You're making this all about me, but what about you? You were distant, you stopped trying, you. I cut her off. Stop. Just stop. You cheated, Kathy. Own it. She pressed her lips together, breathing heavily. Then just like that, she flipped. The tears dried up, the sad, guilty wife act disappeared, and the anger took over. Fine, she snapped, standing up so fast her chair scraped the floor. You want to make me the villain? Go ahead. But don't act like you were perfect, Ben. You weren't. I raised an eyebrow. Did I cheat? She clenched her jaw. No, but then I win. I took a sip of my coffee, calm as ever. She let out a frustrated groan. You're being so damn cold. Like I meant to hurt you. I shook my head. You didn't care if you hurt me. That's the difference. Silence. She stood there, shaking, her nails digging into her arms. She wanted to fight, to argue, to make this my fault. But I wasn't playing her game. Finally, she exhaled sharply and grabbed her phone. Fine. If you want a divorce, let's see how much fun you have being single at your age. You think you're gonna find someone better than me? Good luck, Ben. I smirked, leaning against the counter. Oh, trust me, Kathy. Finding someone better than a lying cheater won't be hard. Her face twisted in rage, but she had nothing left to say. She stormed out of the kitchen, probably to go cry again or text her married boyfriend for comfort. I didn't care. I grabbed my phone, found a lawyer's number, and made the call. It was over. The moment I made the call to the lawyer, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. Not sadness. Not regret. Just freedom. Kathy, on the other hand, was spiraling. She spent the rest of the day locked in the bedroom, probably crying into a pillow, texting her married boyfriend, or plotting her next move. I didn't care. I had my own plans to make. By the next morning she had a new strategy: damage control. She started calling everyone. First she went to her family. I got a call from her mother around noon. "Ben, sweetheart, Kathy just told me what's happening. She's devastated." I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my temples. "Is that so?" Her mom sighed. "She made a mistake, but she still loves you. Maybe you two can work through this?" I let out a bitter chuckle. "Did she tell you what the mistake was?" Pause. A long one. "Well, she said things got complicated. That she felt lonely and made a bad decision." "So she left out the part where she was sleeping with another woman's husband." "Ask her if Mark's wife knows about this bad decision," I said flatly. Another pause. Then a soft, "Oh, yeah." Her mom didn't try to push after that. Just mumbled something about being sorry before hanging up. Then Kathy moved on to our friends. By evening I was getting texts. Some were supportive. "Chris, heard what happened, man. I got your back. Megan, if you need a place to crash, let me know." But others? Others weren't so kind. "Jake, dude, divorce? Are you sure you want to throw away 8 years? Lisa, maybe you should go to therapy first before making a rash decision." The classic "don't throw it all away" line. As if I was the one who spent half a year screwing around behind my partner's back. I didn't bother responding. People like that don't get it. They think marriage is some sacred, unbreakable contract no matter what happens. That as long as you both try, everything can be fixed. But I wasn't interested in fixing something that had already been burned to the ground. Then the real kicker. That night, Kathy tried one last person. My mother. I was sitting on the couch when I got the call. The second I saw my mom's name pop up, I sighed. "Here we go." I answered. "Hey, Mom." She got straight to the point. "Kathy just called me." I rolled my eyes. "Let me guess. She's so heartbroken, and I'm acting out of anger, right?" Mom sighed. "She's definitely upset. But I told her to stop calling me because I'm on your side." I blinked. "Wait, what?" She scoffed. "Ben, honey. I know my son. I know you wouldn't be throwing away your marriage unless Kathy did something really bad. So I asked her straight up if she cheated." I sat up. "And?" She started crying, which was all the answer I needed. I grinned. "God, I love my mom." "So yeah," she continued. "I told her to stop playing the victim and deal with the consequences of her actions." Then I hung up. I let out a breath I didn't even realize I was holding. "Thanks, Mom." "Of course, sweetheart. And don't you dare even think about taking her back." I laughed. "Trust me. That ship has sunk." I could practically hear her nodding through the phone. "Good. Now get that divorce settled and move on. You deserve better." Damn right I did. Kathy could spin whatever sob story she wanted. But at the end of the day, she was the villain in this story and nothing could change that. After Kathy failed to get sympathy from our friends and family, she switched gears. If she couldn't guilt me into staying, maybe she could cut a deal. The next morning, she came into the kitchen while I was drinking coffee, looking like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were puffy, her hair was a mess, and she was gripping her phone like a lifeline. "We need to talk," she said. I sighed, setting my mug down. "About what? The divorce?" "Yeah, I already started that process." She winced but quickly masked it. "Ben, I don't want this to turn ugly." I raised an eyebrow. "Ugly? Kathy, you had a 6-month affair. It's already ugly." She swallowed hard, stepping closer. "Listen. Let's be reasonable. We don't need lawyers fighting over every little thing. We can settle this like adults." Oh, I knew exactly what this was. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about herself. "You mean you don't want me to take everything you don't deserve?" I said flatly. Her jaw clenched. "I just don't want this to be a drawn-out battle. We both built this life together." I let out a bitter chuckle. "Oh, now it's we? Funny how you weren't thinking about us when you were sneaking off to hotels." She exhaled sharply. "Ben, I get it. You're angry. But do you really want to spend months fighting in court over this?" I tilted my head. "You seem awfully eager to avoid legal trouble. Why is that, Kathy? Scared of what might come out?" She blinked rapidly. "I just want this to be fair." "Fair. Fair." I stood up, slowly looking her dead in the eye. "Fair would have been you telling me the truth 6 months ago. Fair would have been you ending things before you spread your legs for another man. But you didn't care about fair then, so why should I care now?" She shrank back, but she wasn't done. "Ben, please. I'll give you whatever you want. Just don't make this harder than it has to be." I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "All right, Kathy. You want a deal? Here's my offer. You pack your things and leave today." No fights, no drawn-out drama. Just go. Her mouth fell open. You can't just kick me out. Actually, I can. This house is in my name. You want fairness? Find a lawyer. She stared at me, chest rising and falling rapidly, like she was trying to find something, anything, to use against me. But there was nothing. She had no power anymore. And she knew it. Finally, she grabbed her phone and stormed out of the room. She thought she could negotiate her way out of this? Not a chance. I thought Kathy would take the hint and start packing. Maybe even go running to Mark, her married boyfriend, and beg him to let her stay with him. But no. That would have made too much sense. Instead, she dug her heels in. By the evening, she was still in the house, acting like nothing had changed. She sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone, completely ignoring me. Like she thought if she just waited it out, I'd cool off and take everything back. I walked into the living room, arms crossed. Kathy, why are you still here? She didn't look up. I live here, Ben. I clenched my jaw. Not for much longer. I told you to leave. Finally, she set her phone down, looking at me with annoyance. Not sadness, not guilt, just pure irritation. I'm not going anywhere. I exhaled slowly, trying to stay calm. Kathy, you cheated. You lied. And now I'm divorcing you. There's no reason for you to stay. She tilted her head, crossing her arms. Actually, legally, I have every right to be here until the divorce is finalized. And there it was. She wasn't leaving because she wanted control. She wanted to drag this out, to make it as painful as possible. I stared at her for a long moment. So that's your play, huh? Stay here and make my life hell? She shrugged. I have nowhere else to go. I scoffed. You sure about that? What about Mark? Oh wait, he's got a wife and kids, doesn't he? Guess you weren't that important to him after all. Her face turned red. Screw you, Ben. I smirked. Nah, I think you've screwed enough people already. She stood up, fists clenched. I'm not leaving and you can't make me. I nodded slowly, pulling out my phone. Okay. Then I'll call Mark's wife and let her know exactly what her husband's been up to. Maybe she can take you in? Her eyes went wide. You wouldn't? I smiled coldly. Try me? Her entire body tensed. I could see the war going on in her head. If I called Mark's wife, her entire affair would blow up. And she couldn't risk that. Finally, she let out a shaky breath. Fine. I folded my arms. Fine what? She looked away. I'll start packing. Victory. I turned and walked away without another word. She thought she could manipulate me, that she could make me miserable just because she wasn't getting her way. But this wasn't her game anymore. It was mine. Kathy spent the next few days slowly packing, dragging her feet like she was hoping I'd change my mind. Every time I walked past her, she looked up like she was expecting me to stop her, to say something like, maybe we can work this out. I never did. She tried different approaches. First, she played the sad, heartbroken wife. I'd hear her crying in the bedroom, sobbing loudly enough that it was obviously for my benefit. When I didn't react, she started walking around the house with red, puffy eyes, sighing dramatically every time I was in the room. Didn't care. Then she switched to nostalgia. One night, while I was making dinner, she leaned against the counter, watching me with this soft, wistful smile. Remember when we used to cook together? She said. I didn't even look at her. Nope. She huffed. Come on, Ben. We had good times. Not everything was bad. I finally turned to her, leaning on the counter. And yet, 6 months ago, you decided that wasn't enough. She flinched. I told you I wasn't thinking. No, you were thinking just fine, I cut in. You just weren't thinking about me. Her lips pressed together and she turned and stormed out. 2 days later, she tried flirting. I was in the living room watching TV when she plopped down next to me, way too close, and casually rested her hand on my thigh. Ben, maybe we don't have to rush this. We could talk about us. I looked at her hand, then back at her and deadpanned, you really think I'd touch you after what you've done? Her face twisted in anger, and she snatched her hand away like I had burned her. You don't have to be such an ass. I shrugged. You don't have to be a cheater, but here we are. She stormed off again. Then she got desperate. That night, I woke up to the sound of Kathy crying hysterically from the bedroom. At first, I ignored it, same act as before, right? But then she started screaming. Ben. Ben, help. I shot up immediately, heart racing, and ran to the bedroom. She was curled up on the floor, clutching her stomach, sobbing. It hurts. I think something's wrong. For a split second, I almost fell for it. Almost. But then I looked closer. No sweat. No real signs of pain. Just drama. I sighed. Nice try, Kathy. She gasped like I had slapped her. What, Ben, I'm serious. I think I need to go to the hospital. I folded my arms. You need a doctor? Call one. She blinked rapidly, clearly expecting me to panic, to scoop her up and rush her to the ER. When I didn't, her crying immediately softened. You don't even care if something happens to me? She whispered. I tilted my head. Funny. You didn't care when you were screwing Mark in a hotel room. Her jaw clenched. You're cruel? I smiled. And you're a liar. Get up. She stared at me for a long moment, then slowly pushed herself off the floor. Completely fine. That was it. The final act. I turned and walked back to the guest room, locking the door behind me. She had tried everything: tears, guilt, nostalgia, seduction, even fake medical emergencies. And none of it worked, because I was done. The morning Kathy was supposed to move out, I half expected her to drag it out again. Maybe throw another fake breakdown, come up with some last-minute excuse, or suddenly claim she had nowhere to go. But when I walked into the living room, I saw her bags by the door, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. So that's it? She asked bitterly. I grabbed a cup of coffee, sipping it slowly. That's it? She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. I still can't believe you're doing this. I let out a dry laugh. You can't believe I'm doing this? Kathy, are you serious? She bit her lip, her fingers digging into her arms. I thought you'd at least try to forgive me. I set my coffee down, turning to face her fully. Let me explain something to you, Kathy. You didn't just cheat. You lied, gaslit me, and made me feel crazy for months. You disrespected our marriage every time you met that man, every time you snuck around behind my back. And the second you got caught, you tried every manipulation tactic in the book. I gestured toward the door. So no, I'm not throwing this away. You did that all on your own. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but I knew better than to fall for it now. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. You just didn't care if you did, I said, my voice steady. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Then she exhaled, grabbing her bags. I hope you regret this one day. I smiled. I already regret wasting 8 years on you. That hit. She flinched, her lips pressing into a thin line. But instead of arguing, she just stormed toward the door, yanking it open. But right before she stepped out, she hesitated. She turned around, her face full of something smug. You know, Ben, Mark wasn't the only one. I blinked, feeling a slow burn in my chest. What? She smirked, tilting her head. You think I was only with him? God, you really are clueless. For a moment, I just stared at her, trying to decide if this was true, or if it was just one last jab to get under my skin. Then I smirked. Doesn't matter. Trash belongs in the streets either way. Her smirk vanished. She huffed, slamming the door behind her. And just like that, she was gone. For the first time in months, I let out a breath that actually felt free. She thought she could hurt me with that little revelation. But all it did was prove what I already knew. I never really lost a wife. I lost a liar. The silence after Kathy left was deafening. For months, I had lived in a house filled with tension, lies, and fake affection. Now it was just empty, peaceful, but also unsettling. I stood there for a long time, staring at the door, half expecting her to come back with another excuse, another attempt to manipulate me. But she didn't. She was gone. I let out a slow breath and sat on the couch, rubbing my temples. 8 years. Wasted on someone who never valued me, who lied with a straight face, who acted like she was the victim even after she shattered everything we built. I should have felt anger. Maybe even sadness. But all I felt was relief. I wasn't trapped anymore. I didn't have to second-guess every conversation, every late-night text she sent, every little change in her behavior. I was free. Then my phone buzzed. At first, I thought it was Kathy, maybe sending one last desperate message. But when I looked down, it was from Jake. Jake, hey man, heard Kathy moved out. You doing okay? I sighed. Of course Jake would reach out. He was one of those guys who still believed in working things out no matter how bad things got. I hadn't responded to his last texts, but maybe it was time to shut this conversation down once and for all. Me, yeah, I'm fine. Divorce papers are getting filed this week. His reply was almost instant. Jake, divorce is a big step, bro. You sure it's what you want? I rolled my eyes. Me, Jake, she cheated for 6 months. Lied to me every day. Tried to manipulate me when I caught her. There's nothing left to save. Pause. Then. Jake, I get that, man, I do. But aren't you at least gonna try therapy? Therapy. Therapy. I let out a dry laugh. Me, what's therapy gonna do? Make her uncheat? No reply. Good. I tossed my phone onto the table and leaned back, closing my eyes. This was the part no one talked about, when the adrenaline wears off and you're left with the wreckage of a life you thought you had. But I wasn't going to sit around feeling sorry for myself. I had wasted enough time on Kathy's bullshit tea. I stood up, grabbed a trash bag and started clearing the house of her presents. Her shampoo. Gone. Her stupid decorative pillows? The framed photos of us? In a box shoved into the back of the closet. The whole time I felt lighter. Like I was finally reclaiming my own space. And just as I was finishing up, my phone buzzed again. But this time it wasn't Jake. It was Kathy. One last message. Kathy, you'll regret this. One day you'll realize what you threw away. I stared at the screen for a moment. Then I smirked. Blocked. I wasn't going to regret a damn thing. The morning after Kathy was gone, I woke up feeling different. Lighter. Clear. Free. For the first time in months, I didn't wake up with a knot in my stomach, wondering what new lies she'd tell me, what new excuse she'd make, what new reason she'd find to avoid me. The house was quiet, but it wasn't that suffocating, tense silence I had gotten used to. It was peaceful. I made my coffee, sat on the couch and scrolled through my phone. No Kathy. No drama. Just me, finally able to focus on my own life. And that's when the messages started rolling in. The people who took sides. Some friends, real friends, had my back. Chris, glad she's out, man. Let's grab drinks soon. Megan, if you need anything, I'm here. Seriously. Proud of you for standing up for yourself. But then there were the people who just didn't get it. Lisa, I still think you should have tried therapy first. Divorce is so final. Jake, man, I just don't get why you had to go nuclear. People make mistakes. Mistakes? Mistakes. I didn't even bother responding. People like them? They were the type who thought marriage meant endless forgiveness no matter what. That it didn't matter if she cheated, lied, or manipulated, what mattered was keeping the marriage intact at all costs. No thanks. I was done with people like that. Then came the news about Mark. By noon, I got a text from an unexpected number, Mark's wife. Unknown number. Hey Ben, this is Emily. Mark's wife. Can we talk? Oh, I'd been waiting for this moment. I called her immediately. Emily. Hey. She sighed. So, I found out everything. Kathy told you? I asked. Emily let out a bitter laugh. Hell no. Mark slipped up. Left his phone unlocked. It took me 2 minutes to find everything. I shook my head. Jesus? Yeah. And the best part? When I confronted him, he tried to say Kathy was the one chasing him. I let out a humorless laugh. Of course he did. Classic coward move. Emily exhaled. I just wanted to say thank you. I know you were debating telling me yourself, and I'm glad I found out either way. I've already spoken to a lawyer. I'm leaving him. Good. She deserved better. We talked for a little while, mostly about how insane it was that the people we trusted most had been sneaking around behind our backs. By the end of the call, we both agreed on one thing. We were done with them. Kathy and Mark deserved each other. Two cheaters, two liars, too selfish to think about anyone but themselves. The final goodbye. That evening, I poured myself a drink and stood by the window looking out at the city. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could actually breathe. No more lies. No more second-guessing. No more Kathy. She had texted me before I blocked her, saying I'd regret this someday. That I'd realize I threw away something good. But as I sat there, sipping my drink, watching the sun set on this new chapter of my life, I knew the truth. The only thing I regretted